Hello everyone, I'm Ayako Oiwa from Keiwa College. We're a small, private, liberal arts university located in the northern part of Niigata Prefecture.
And I am Michael Yap from Meho Junior and Senior High School in Tokyo. I was a visiting instructor at Keiwa College until March of this year. Welcome to our presentation, A Sense of Belonging in an Inclusive Classroom. Thank you for the time to access this video and for your interest in learning about the research Ayako and I conducted in Keiwa. Well, we worked on a joint research project from April 2018 until March of 2020 to investigate how to better support the students with specific learning differences, or SpLD, in our English program. This presentation is based on the paper we wrote, which we published in June of this year. In the first portion of our paper, we pointed out the insufficiency in literature, research, and empirical studies on those who show any differences or difficulties with particular aspects of learning English as a foreign language in the tertiary level.
The latter part of the paper contains our action research to create an inclusive learning community where the learners are empowered to be self-sufficient and where shared accommodation takes place. Since we don't have enough time to go over the theoretical part in today's presentation, please refer to our paper available online for the detailed explanation. This QR code will take you to the annual report published by Keiwa College. In this presentation, we will focus on the efforts in achieving shared accommodation with our learners and how it has expanded into other language learning activities.
Now, in this graph right here, the Japan Student Services Organization, or JASO, has noted that the number of students with disabilities, including special learning differences, and other developmental uniqueness is increasing in Japanese tertiary education. This spike has grown exponentially from 2015. This increase in the number of students with various learning differences emphasizes the need for inclusion, differentiated instruction, and accommodation, especially in classes where learners need to interact, collaborate, and communicate with each other in the foreign language.
Students with severe cases of SpLD are usually diagnosed and they request reasonable accommodation. In Japan, it's called 合理的配慮 from their institutions. Students without the official diagnosis, but if they are self-aware, may request reasonable accommodation as well on campus. There are students that have tendencies towards learning difficulties but are not diagnosed with any kind of so-called developmental disorders. They often experience some sort of difficulties in their social and academic lives due to their learning differences. For example, some may have difficulties with multitasking and cannot take notes in class. Some may feel and act awkward when chatting with their peers. Oftentimes, they do not even clearly understand what they have difficulties with, and they're not self-aware. Their family may not be aware of the students' learning differences either. Some, on the other hand, are well aware of the difficulties that they have to deal with and visit doctors for diagnosis, but are only told that they have tendencies just because of the test score. Those without the official diagnosis but are experiencing some sort of difficulties due to SpLD are so-called gray zone people or gray zone students in Japan.
So we started this joint research because of the challenges we experience in the classroom. Challenges that are not necessarily connected with how to provide individual accommodation requests, but the uncertainty of how to assist students who are in the gray zone. Gray zone students would usually appear to seemingly cope in the classroom, having been accustomed to fixed educational structures, procedures, and available support systems in their middle or high schools. The new status quo of the tertiary education can be quite jarring for learners with SpLD. These learners have no choice but to learn how to navigate and survive mainstream education, even if their learned skills are not sufficient in the new, less sheltered university environment where independence or learner initiative is encouraged, if not expected. This new environment would eventually lead to the presenting of difficulties related to undiagnosed SpLD. As these students have not been diagnosed nor given the training to handle their special needs, they often have difficulties in managing time, following self-managed or collaborative classes, multitasking, asking for help, and talking to people in general.
Also, language classes often require students to actively communicate with peers with the teacher in charge. If students with SpLD lack experience in interacting with others, these classrooms can exacerbate the presentation of SpLD, as these students are unable to remove themselves from various situations that trigger their stress points. They find it more challenging to manage their symptoms associated with SpLD. In the same way, students without learning difficulties also require some support when they have classmates with SpLD. Without proper guidance, learners with SpLD are often treated with indifference or, in most cases, simply ignored by their peers. This prompts a necessity to provide all parties with ways to navigate this new environment. With this in mind, we initially set our research questions as follows. Those questions led us to developing activities that would help us answer them. How can students be empowered to seek assistance when they need to? How can students with learning difficulties recognize their needs and request for accommodation? And what can be done to help students recognize learning differences while acquiring information about learners' unique learning preferences?
Now, theoretically, in order for students with or without any type of learning difficulties to study together in the same foreign language classroom, the first step of creating an inclusive learning environment is to ensure that social barriers are eliminated. Social barriers refer to situations where learners with SpLD find it difficult to navigate and interact in. The next step is to provide any reasonable accommodations requested by the students and to cater to students' individual needs and differences. This twofold guideline provides ample foundation to an inclusive classroom, since theoretically, by providing both a barrier-free environment and the accommodation requested, all students should be able to learn equally. However, as Ayako mentioned earlier, we thought that the process cannot be successful unless the entire class is oriented towards working together despite individual differences. This means that awareness of these differences should be established alongside these two base points. All learners should be provided with tools, references, and information they can access in any event that they require assistance in working towards an inclusive, welcoming classroom.
Again, in the early stages of our study, we wanted to find ways to provide a better educational setup to address our students' different learning abilities and difficulties. However, for this to be successful, the approach should involve the entire class awareness and understanding. We decided to change how we run our class day one. We used to do casual ice-breaking activities and explain our syllabus on the first day of classes. When the 2019 spring semester started, we ran our recalibrated orientation with all 7 levels of freshman core curriculum English listening and speaking classes. With the new orientation, we hoped learners would become more aware of the differences in themselves and their classmates and learn to be self-sufficient in a new environment. We also hoped that this would provide an opportunity for teachers to gain a profile of each student at the beginning of the semester.
The objectives of recalibrated orientation were threefold. After going through the activities dedicated for this session, we hope that the students would be more aware that they can always ask for help. They become more knowledgeable about the how and when of asking for help. and be more aware of how they can learn while considering other learning pathways.
The first step of orientation was a puzzle warm-up. The class was divided into groups of 4 to 6 students. Each group was given a set of cube puzzles that looks like that, and a reference photo to complete within 5 minutes. However, the sets were incomplete. Some sets would be missing a piece, while others would have an extra piece. This was deliberately done so that the students would face a problematic situation while allowing us to see how students react to this issue at hand. After the set activity time was up, students were asked to discuss and identify issues that they have encountered during activity. They also discussed what they should have done to resolve the issue they faced. While a few students immediately called the teacher's attention or stood and looked at how other groups were doing, the majority of the learners stayed quiet and pushed through the activity hands down on the task.
To help learners unlearn this habit, we emphasize that they can always reach out for help, which surprisingly, this surprised a lot of the students. With many quite uncertain or unfamiliar with asking for help, we oriented our students with this Ask for Help flowchart. This chart has 3 features. One, it provides a thinking reference guide, questions, and yes or no answers. Each yes or no answer would lead them to the next step. Number 2, a list of individuals that they can reach out to because learners don't usually know who to ask for help. And then number 3, QR codes that link to a quick list of offices, phone numbers, and contact persons. This directory is written both in English and in Japanese. The English directory was prepared with the intention to also assist both non-Japanese learners who are enrolled in the college and visiting English instructors who have limited Japanese language abilities.
With the classroom set as a place where students can freely ask for help, students will then provide a list of phrases they can use to ask for assistance in specific situations. For easy access, that doubles as a study tool, the list was migrated into Quizlet. Since the students can access these tools through their mobile phones, the app can also serve as a visual communication tool for learners who are unable to verbalize when they're stressed or anxious.
The orientation was capped with a quick survey that allows students to identify their learning channel preferences and their print preferences. These casual surveys showed students and their peers that everybody learns in different ways and prefers the different font size, or backdrop colors.
In some of my classes throughout the semester, I was able to plan supplemental activities based on asking for help phrase list when the textbook theme matched. For instance, I teach class 7, which is Sephora level A0, and the unit was on classroom items. So I created a worksheet to review who to ask for help when in a problematic situation, and what to say in Japanese, and the translation of the phrase with blanks for the target vocabulary. On the unit on health, I used the timeout phrase list and absences and tardiness phrase list, which include phrases like, may I walk around in the back? May I stand up while I think? May I step outside for a moment? I have a stomachache. May I go to the nurse's office? I missed the class on Monday because I had a headache and such. I had students brainstorm other situations on campus where they have to talk about their health conditions. The students brainstormed, and extra phrases that students came up with, for example, were, may I go get some water to take medication? I'm hypersensitive to smell. May I open the window because I feel sick? I constantly tried to remind my students that it's okay to talk about their needs and rather casually ask for accommodation if it helps them learn. Through this activity, I became more aware of students' physical and mental health conditions and difficulties that they often experience. One student explained during this activity that her medication makes her sleepy, while other students asked how he could write he misses classes on Friday morning because of futsukayoi. So the vocabulary he was looking for was hangover. But when he explained, it became evident that he's hungover on Friday because he often forgets which day of the week it is and starts drinking on Thursday. So the difficulty he was experiencing in college was not just about a coursework or missing classes, but something less prominent. It's difficult to remember the dates and keep his schedule. So with the classmates' advice, he started using the reminder function to deal with the specific difficulty he faces. This project from my second year oral communication class was about friendship. We were on a unit about friendship, and the discussion questions was about when and to what extent would you help your friends? Students initiated a group project to create a poster to deliver the message that it's okay to ask for help. Each group worked on different situations where you might need help from a friend. Here we see your messages like it's not a big deal. You might have trouble, but you also have friends. It's okay to ask your friend for help when you're short on money. Feel free to ask your friends. That's what friends are for. Students also listed the phrases of how to ask for help in each situation that were not listed in the phrase list we provided earlier in the semester. This poster was not just for them to learn the phrases in English, but also to assist their classmates who are not very good at asking for help when needed. Students also hoped that Japanese phrases will help their non-Japanese students too. Students updated the phrase list on Quizlet and provided the QR code for the complete list of phrases.
Now, while we still need to further investigate how our efforts helped our learners manage their college life, we would like to share some anecdotal feedback from our learners based on personal correspondence or interaction with them. So please feel free to pause the video and read each one at your own pace.
We feel that positive reaction, and use of the tools from the orientation have validated what we have been trying to achieve. However, much work is still required to be complete. We have to record, quantify, and further develop the initial steps. For our further research, we want to conduct interviews with the students who are finishing 2 years of the course with our inclusive approach. Secondly, create a more concrete syllabus design to include activities based on asking for help phrases. And lastly, find out the tendencies of SpLD students and their language choice at our college. Non-language majors have a choice of foreign language, and we have a feeling that many students with accommodation requests or the ones with SpLD choose languages other than English. Or even if they need to take English, but they have a choice of either reading, writing, or listening, speaking, they tend to choose reading, writing classes. So if that's the case, they don't get our orientation. We need to investigate the needs to expand our orientation to the entire freshman population, not just the ones that take English, speaking, and listening classes.
Promoting students' independence and self-support while exploring the practices of inclusive EFL classrooms are tall tasks to undertake. However, practical tools to help remove barriers in the classroom, any tools to facilitate a change of mindset and assist students' collaboration and cooperation are urgently needed. Recalibrated orientation at the beginning of the school year is one way to cater to those needs. And most importantly, empower the freshman university students toward self-sufficiency and self-advocacy. In addition, while learners are equipped with awareness that their classroom is a community of learning and the diversity of members are celebrated, provision of accommodation becomes a shared community of practice.
Allow us to close our presentation with this graphic created by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. This image illustrates that providing appropriate tools allow people with different abilities to participate in a common task. Through the provision of communication tools and sense of awareness of each one's uniqueness, we hope to provide learners a better position to focus on learning and working towards class objectives, not just individually, but with their peers as part of their community of learners. Inclusive classroom is not just about treating students equally, but providing equitable opportunities for learning. If you happen to have questions to ask or insights to share, we're available for a Q&A session.
For more information, please refer to the JALT conference website or please follow the links below. Thank you so much for sparing your time to watch our presentation. We look forward to seeing you in a Q&A.